It'd be really funny to start and discover we were each talking about a different book. Like, what if we didn't check and we were both reading different books? Like, that's so weird. I didn't read that part.
We're like, I got a totally different vibe.
Yeah. Oh, weird. I thought, well, also, why do you keep saying he?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Caitlin.
And this is Sharon.
And welcome to Real Housewives on Real Housewives, where we unravel housewives' story threads and keep the tea flowing.
So chic.
Hold on to your reading glasses.
Today we're digging into The Gorga Guide to Success, Business, Marriage, and Life Lessons from a Real Estate Mogul, written by Joe Gorga. It was written in 2019, and he did have someone help him write it.
Yes. So what was the best part? What did you like about this book? The hot tea.
First of all, I really like Joe, so I should throw that out there.
And we read Melissa's book.
Yeah,
and honestly,
we read
I do think the two books go hand in hand
they
together.
They do, and they fit together, and I kind of knew almost what to expect.
Yes,
of it.
I think so.
I love the stories of how he hustled and made himself a success.
Yeah,
I
agree.
when there was the economy bust in 2008 and he's in real estate, how he just has this attitude of, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. Get it done.
No, they're hard workers. And it was interesting hearing him say about like his childhood, about how he just worked through it. And his parents were always like, you're going to work. He had like jobs at a very, very young age.
Yeah. At age 10, he was cooking hot dogs in a place.
Exactly.
And
like
then,
he just always punched the clock. So he punches the clock.
And I also found that interesting. Oh, and he also had a paper route. I found it interesting because, he talks about how he had this strong work ethic. And Teresa did too. Because on the show, I see it with Joe.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think about it with Teresa. And she probably does have a very strong work ethic.
I mean,
but
think about all the books she's produced and stuff. Like, she is trying to hustle, I think.
Yeah.
But
I just don't think of her in that way. I don't know if it's because she's female. I don't, and it's
be.
not fair,
Yeah,
but,
no, I agree.
But reading this made me, like, she was doing all those things too as a kid.
Yeah, and especially because she was an early housewife, and I think that label, like, really sticks on the earlier housewives as, like, didn't work.
Yeah.
Was a housewife. So, like, I think that she gets labeled a little bit there.
Yeah.
I thought it was just, like, he's such a family man, like you see on the show. Like, he never had any doubts about Melissa. And it's like that. She says that in her book, too. So, like, I liked that parody there. Also, okay, my guess for my hot tea, like, I loved hearing his side of the Juicy Joe saga.
Yeah.
Like, he said, like, I learned when it comes to money, you can't trust anyone. And that included your own brother-in-law. And, like, so I guess his family had known Joe since they were kids. Like, he'd always been a part of the family. But, like, he described him as a rough guy. Like, Teresa was with this guy who they all really liked. And then she found out that guy was cheating on her. And then all of a sudden she was dating Joe. They thought Joe was a little rough, but he was also kind of like family. Their parents had known each other a long time. And then interestingly enough, he says, like, first of all, we all got along. And then a lot of this book makes me sad. We can get into that in like the iced tea. But like Teresa and I had been best friends our entire lives.
Yeah.
Like this is the part that I think we'll find sad. But then he gets into construction and he makes it seem like Joe kind of thought of him as a rival. Like that Joe had been in construction longer, was probably more established. But that like him coming in, and granted, to start off, he was just like that's not fair. Yeah. But he, compared to his brother-in-law, like, he was a landscaper. He was just starting out. Like he was building his businesses. He was not at the level that Juicy Joe was at. And so it kind of turns out that Joe kind of screwed him on like a half-framed, half-stuccoed house. And his dad said to him, like, well, whose house is it? Is it your house? Is it Joe's house? And he's like, well, it's mine. And he's like, then it's your job to fix it. And he just like swept it under the rug and let it go. But it's like, it's so interesting because Teresa makes it sound like so much of all of this came from her brother and Melissa. And it's like, I don't know that she's always aware of like the history behind things that maybe Joe didn't help the situation.
Yeah, almost kind of like now Louis doesn't help. Like she's sort of blind to her lovers.
That's exactly
like
what I would
how
say.
they mess up her relationship.
Yes. I'm afraid she's like one of those people who really leaps into another person and then kind of can't see, like turns a blind eye to some of their negativities and then like puts it all on her brother. And I don't think that that's fair. It's like you have to be able to see your own issues too. And in the book, Joe kind of said like, I messed some things up. We weren't talking about, like, he was a little more honest about it. And I feel like whenever you ask her to talk about it, she just immediately turns it around. And I didn't get that as much from Joe. Like, I'm not saying he's without blame by any means, but he was a little more self-aware than I expected him to be.
I agree.
Yeah. I also didn't get all, so there was a bunch of phrases that kind of are the chapter titles of the book. And some of them didn't make sense, like maybe like lost in translation. Like there was put 2 feet in 1 boot.
Yeah.
Which I thought maybe was like, don't get dressed that way. But it seemed like it was get dressed that way. And that's not how you get dressed.
Yeah, because he was like, I had to put my other, I was really confused.
That doesn't seem like it would work. I've had kids put 2 feet in 1 boots and it doesn't go well.
It's funny, like
they fall down.
when you hear that, what do you call them? I forget what they're called, these sayings.
Yeah.
But like my mom translated one once. It's like a common saying. It was like,
yes.
What does a donkey know about fruit salad?
Yeah.
And it's just so much better when you say it in English and you're like, because it just sounds so fun.
Exactly. I feel like this is one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Were we on the iced tea?
I think we were on the hot tea, but I was just kind of slid into the iced tea.
Because
let's slide directly into the iced tea.
My iced tea is silly to begin with. My silly one is on page 21. He says, work is a privilege and you should do it with a smile. And I was like, buzzkill. Oh my God, we can't hang out. Like, I don't know.
Okay, this is why he goes home and doesn't want to talk about work.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
So I'm like, he has a good attitude.
He does have a good attitude.
And you know what? I don't. But he does. And I think that's awesome.
That bummed Sharon.
That's why he's so happy. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my biggest iced tea was just, it was really sad watching his and Teresa's relationship, like through the different stages that he talks about, like when they were best friends and when they got back together, and just how much he loves her throughout the book. Like you can really see it, and that made me sad.
Oh, agree. The other iced tea I had is, okay, so we know from Melissa's book that, you know, Joe and Melissa have very kind of old school values, gender roles. He says his sons need to protect their sister, so his daughter, and their daughter needs to protect her reputation.
Yeah, I didn't
Those
like
were
that either.
The most important things. And that even though I knew that they were more conservative, I just didn't like that. It read way too old school for me.
You really made it sound like, and like the daughter needed like 8 times the protection that the boys needed. And it's like,
but he also did say like how when he was a kid, his dad told him he had to protect Teresa. And,
I think he absolutely carries that.
And so he feels that way about her. That's why he said how hard it was when she went to jail and he couldn't do anything to help her.
Yeah, exactly. And I think she doesn't let him help and he feels like he's supposed to help. And I don't know that that's like a older sister, younger brother thing or what that is. How long did it take you to finish the book? Did you have to force yourself to read it or couldn't put it down?
I couldn't put it down. I read it in like one night.
It read very fast.
I love it because it's like 150 pages. And that's just such a nice book size.
Yeah, and it's sort of a smaller book anyway. Yeah. Like it's not as
because it's
not
not
normal
feel
paper
like stressful.
It doesn't. Yeah, and you know it's funny because again, looking at it, I thought it would be this just his tenets on business, but it is more than that. It's a biography too.
But this one does go more into his business philosophy.
But this goes a lot more than others. Yes, this one does lean more toward that side than the other one. It reminded me a lot of Mauricio's book when we read that back a few book clubs ago.
This is like how his life influenced his
how
he came to these business rules.
So rather than it just being coached as that, it did make more sense to me than a lot of these biographies where it's like, oh, and also we're self-help book. Like his made more sense in that way. Yeah, it was a really fast read for me. Oh, the only thing that bugged me though, I was thinking about the size, and maybe it's the size that affects it, but the photos in the center were so, I love those. And they were so hard to see. Like they weren't photocopied super well. And then the book is smaller to begin with.
And they're black and white.
And there's a lot of them. It's like, it felt like, okay, if this had been a woman's book, you would have gotten separate photo pages.
Yes, exactly.
Pulled out in the center. But men don't get that. And that's a bummer for me.
What was there a part of the book you thought was disturbing?
Okay. I'm getting into this. So Teresa didn't tell them that she joined the cast.
Okay, this is my thing too. Okay.
And yet she spent her entire life, on the show at least, complaining that they didn't tell her when they go. I mean, an eye for an eye, Teresa. I thought you were big on that. She's huge on that. I'm not big on that, but she is.
When I read that, I actually reread it because I was like, wait, did I read that wrong?
I wrote down the UTF.
Like, I was like, there's no way she would come out and say that.
Right.
That's why. Because he says they were
a little estranged.
They were estranged.
Yes.
And he didn't know that Teresa was filming.
Yeah. And that she hadn't even mentioned her brother on the show, which hurt his feelings.
And then
I mean,
and then the cast or the producers call him or Melissa and they're like, hey, you guys want to get involved?
And the funny thing was he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I don't want things to change with Melissa. I don't want things to change with our family. But like he got behind it because Melissa really got behind it.
Yeah.
So again, it's like everyone who keeps saying they joined the show to bring Teresa down. Boo hockey. They weren't even talking. Like they joined the show because, oh, guess what? He works really hard.
Yeah.
They'd had a recession where they lost money. Again, the same way that she wanted to hustle and make money, so did they. So to turn this down would be turning down the money, turning down the fame, turning down. It had nothing to do with Teresa, nor did Teresa's have anything to do with them. They just both joined the cast.
Yeah.
And maybe they should have talked to each other, but they weren't talking.
Exactly.
So I think I don't know, but I was just like, that is so hypocritical.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe this is what she's been arguing about all this time when she did it first. Like, it's crazy to me.
I thought it was really sad how he writes, like, initially Teresa and Melissa started off great. My sister was super sweet and the two of them got along.
Yeah.
Well, that just makes
I
sense.
know, because he said, like, initially they were friends. And
Yeah. So I still don't understand. We still really never get the first thing that went wrong.
Because I don't understand, like, the first thing we see on that show.
Oh, well, I guess we get the Joe thing.
Yeah, we get the Joe thing.
It's got to stem from
I
Juicy
think
Joe.
so. And, like, because the first thing we get is that christening way back when, and it's been so long since I've seen it. I actually forgot it was Joe's child's christening that all this went wrong at initially, where they had the big fight. Like, I kind of thought, for some reason, I thought it was Teresa's event in my head. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot. Like, I'd completely forgotten that. And like he said, like, we went home and Melissa and I cried and cried. Like, they didn't just jump into this. Like, they thought it would go better and it didn't. Like, sometimes when things are toxic in a family, people still have hope.
Yeah.
And they're hoping it's going to go well. And sometimes it doesn't. It's like, this is why Thanksgiving dinners are difficult, people. Like, sometimes things go wrong in a family. And that doesn't mean that, like, you're going into it going, God, I hope all this falls. I'm going to take my uncle down at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what happened. Like, it was kind of sad, too, when he said I missed the old Melissa. Like, because they're in such a traditional. And part of me was also like, okay, it's a little sexist joke.
That's what I thought too. And then I was like, okay, but he's over
But it's like,
now. Yeah.
but again, I feel like he does have all these feelings, and everyone just acts like he's such this like harsh, brash guy. At least that's kind of the image I think Teresa has portrayed. And it's like he loves his sister, he loves his wife, he loves his kids.
I knew he would love his wife. What really got to me and broke my heart was how much he loves Teresa.
Yeah, me too.
I knew he loves his wife. I knew he likes his family. That really, that hurt me to read it. And at one point, he said, like, when she was in prison, he wrote, I think she was afraid, so she really didn't let me in.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was the most, like, real take on their issues
I think
that I'd ever heard.
Because he kind of said, like, before she went away, she kind of was pushing him away. And it's like, again, I just don't think a lot of this stuff is as, like, thought out as they make it, or like pre-planned, like they make it to be on the show. It's like, there's real emotions and real problems, and this is hard. And people have hard reactions. But, like, he still went, you never visited me in jail. Like, he was there, like, and I don't understand what happened. And maybe she didn't want him to see her and she didn't put him on the list. But I think they have to let the why go and just, like, move forward because everyone made choices and stuff got hard. I don't know. What do you think makes this book unique?
I actually left this blank.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
it was a harder one.
I don't know that there's necessarily anything unique other than it's what his life story. Which,
Again, I kind of I had trouble with it too. I think Joe knows what he wants and how to live his own life. Like, he really has his own values set out in a way that he understands them. And so does Melissa in her book. Like, that's an interesting, like they say there's those people who kind of have like, what's it called when you have like a slogan for your business or your family that you live by? Like
a motto or a
like
mantra?
A motto exactly. And it's like they'll say like your family should write down your family motto or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's
I kind of feel like that's
that always makes me cringe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't know the word because we don't have one. We haven't done that at my house. But I thought like they kind of seem like people who do, even if it's probably not like cross-stitched over their door. But like I think they understand, and even though they have this really like old school viewpoint on life and their marriage, it's their viewpoint. They both agree on it, and they live by their own values. And he really proved that in the book. And again, whether you agree with him, it's not how I'm going to live my life, probably. But at the same point, they have a pretty successful life, and they get along, and they seem to like each other. And so it works for them, and they understand that.
Yeah. That was a really good
Thank you.
take.
I was proud of how that came out because I paused on it a long time.
What surprised you in the book?
It surprised me that Teresa and Melissa started off great. And that again, they didn't quite explain where that went wrong. I blame Juicy Joe. I don't know who he blames necessarily. And I thought it was sad. Like what surprised me was that there were so many hits and misses. And I knew that, but it still surprised me and upset me. Like their mom's death brought them together, going to jail. He forgave, but then she was cold about something. And then it just went back and forth and back and forth. And I worry that like Teresa just gets into these, and I'm going to say it, even though I'm sure people are going to get mad at me. She gets into what I feel like are kind of toxic relationships. I'm like, I'm not saying they're abusive. I'm just saying they're maybe not good or maybe not the healthiest thing. And she takes on the other person so much that she cuts everybody else out. But in her mind, she sees it as everyone else is against her. And I just feel like she needs some self-reflection because her brother loves her.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't have said it more in the book. And I guess that surprised me. Like, because Melissa just sort of avoided the topic. Yeah. Except for saying things like, I've got my kids have great aunts and I loved my in-laws and I loved that side of the family. But she kind of tried to stay back from it. But he doesn't. Like he loves his sister. And I don't get that from her. So I don't understand how this is his fault.
Yeah.
I guess that's what surprised me.
I wrote what surprised me is I liked how it was written. It was very much his voice.
Yes.
It was how he speaks.
It kind of feels like you watched a documentary.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a casual speech pattern.
That's a great
type
point.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think he had a ghostwriter, right?
He did. Yeah.
But it sounds like him. I feel like he literally just looked at me and told me this stuff.
Exactly. I feel like now that you say that, I feel
sometimes
like I watched an episode of this.
Yeah. Sometimes when people are like telling a past story, but they're telling it in present tense. Like, I love that because that's how it was.
I agree. That's a really good point. I didn't think of it, but that's absolutely what it's like.
But yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Did you have any lingering questions after finishing the book?
No. And I don't know if I'm just like can't think lately or if I just, because I kind of feel like with him, what you see is what you get. I don't think
he left a lot to the imagination.
Yeah.
Like I put, why can't they work it out in big letters? I wrote, look at his end acknowledgement. So in the end of the acknowledgements, it said, to Teresa, you were always the one who trusted me and supported me. From letting me max out your cards from my first business to today, you've been my best friend and my sister. If I could change the last few years for you, I would. But I also know our mommy and daddy made us strong so we can overcome anything. I know you will, and I'll be here for you. Like that made me want to cry.
That broke my heart.
So just my question is like, why can't they work it out?
Get it together.
Come on, guys. Yeah. It's like those cousins deserve to be together. It just blows my mind.
It really does. How honest do you think that author was?
I mean, I think pretty honest. I feel like he holds some things close to the vest, but I also feel like you said it's who he is. Like he explained how his whole childhood was and how it was kind of rough in places and his relationships with his parents kind of waxed and waned. So he was honest about stuff I didn't expect from him. And he told truths about Teresa and Joe. And I feel like that he kind of said, this is my side of it. It's not like he said, this is the truth and the only thing. He detailed like his 2 broken engagements. I mean, he was honest about parts of his life. I do think that he's a bit sexist in because he has these sort of traditional values. And like, I'm not saying it's in a bad way. It's just where I stand. Like, I would like things to be a little more modern, I guess. And so I think like, I wish he'd acknowledged that a little bit more. Like Melissa kept saying we have a traditional marriage, but maybe she gets more flack for it. He just kind of acted a little bit like that's how everybody is. And I think it's a little more like that's how you are. So I'm not sure he's totally honest with that. But at the same point, she was. So did he need to be? I don't know.
Yeah. Just like I said before, I think he's what you see is what you get. But he did mention like, at one point he was like, crying in his car because he's struggling and he's got to fix stuff economic, financially for his family. But I also feel like maybe he's just not as in tune with his emotions. Like feel like he gave us what he is in tune with. Yeah. And he's probably not like super in tune with his emotions. Yes. But
he was more in tune than I expected him to be.
Yes. I agree with that.
But I don't know if that's fair. Like you did better than I thought you did. Did reading this book change your view of the author or the Housewives franchise?
I really, really like Joe, and I really liked him. And I'd already read Melissa's book, so I kind of knew what to expect. So. Yeah.
No, I agree. I feel like we judged them correctly. Like how we feel about them is how they played out. Okay, I liked because this is how I would kind of describe like how Joe is a person. But he said, people are like Play-Doh. They're tough, but you can still push them around. The thing is, if you push too much, splat, you won't get anywhere with them. And they felt like, okay, that's kind of the balance that is Jersey. Like, you kind of have to be a little strong to push, but if you push too hard, everything falls apart. Like, that's the balance of that whole show. I just was kind of like, the show is Play-Doh. This is now how I think about it. But I do think he's a humble guy and an honest guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he works hard.
He does. Definitely works hard. Let's judge the book by its cover. Do we like the artwork? Do we like
I
the title?
love the color red.
That's right.
I don't think it goes super well with Melissa's book, like if you put them on the shelf.
Yeah.
But also his book would be shorter, and that's a little weird.
Yeah. Well, okay, so his book, it says The Gorga Guide to Success, and it's got a picture of him maybe from like the shoulders up. Yeah. It's a really good picture of him.
It's a great picture of him. I don't
like the
mind
font.
it, but I feel like it looks like I could have designed it.
It does.
Like
it
when
does.
I'm making my memes, I feel like I could make you this. And I'm not sure I want
okay,
my book,
I agree. Now that you said that,
I want my book
agree.
cover to be like Caitlin with like, a few months of meme making experience to design this. Or like a yearbook, like your kid's yearbook might look.
Okay, now I can't unsee that.
I actually don't like the back either. I don't like how they just sort of did those little
I
flat
never
pull
look at the back. I always forget.
You're so busy judging it by the cover that you don't look. I don't look the
Don't
cover
judge it by the back.
The cover has two sides.
Yeah. But it does. There is a little gold thingy, and it says #1 international best-selling book of husbands from New Jersey who are contractors. I don't know. It's like we talked about with Erica Jane and the songs, like
the category.
Yeah.
So.
It's got to be a very specific category.
It doesn't sound like it's a New York Times bestseller, like Heather Gay's book.
Teresa's.
Teresa says,
"Oh, she's got 4 New York Times bestsellers."
Oh, that's right. Well, now I feel bad. It's an amazing cover. I love it.
Actually, he looks good on it. I actually think it goes well with.
He does.
Melissa's is predominantly black and white, and his
That's
is
true.
red and black. So I think they look nice together.
I guess that's true because I do like those colors together. Plus, I do think like it's meant to act like a guidebook, and it does look like it's a guide.
Yeah.
So like it fits its genre. Like it does what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like inside where it's hard to see the photos, but you could see him with that haircut in a few other places. So it's like they took some family photos and stuff that way. And they do look really good in the photos. Like whoever took the photos did a great job. So
yeah.
I'll give them that. Plus you're buying it because Joe's on the cover. I mean, like, let's not mince her, stuff here. Okay. So was there a ghostwriter? Yes, it was Kristen McGinnis helped him write it. He acknowledges her in the back.
Okay. Real Housewives on Reels High. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I think a thumbs up. It completely compliments Melissa. I think it's worth reading together if you're a Jersey fan and a Gorga appreciator.
A Gorga kisser, as we were called.
Proud to be it.
We are proud.
So I think if you don't like them, don't read it because you're just going to pick it apart.
Yeah. I think if you don't like him, you are going to be so irritated.
I think so too.
I love him. I love the book.
Me
I
too.
think he's a cool guy. So
yeah, exactly.
I say definitely 2 thumbs up.
Because I think anybody on the other camp seems to like want to pick everything apart. And it's like...
Yeah, and there's probably stuff you could definitely pick apart.
I think absolutely you
could.
But again, if you like him and you see it as his voice, then yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's our take on the Gorgas. We've now read both of them. We are going to read Teresa's book, but we're going to put them on our Patreon. So you can check those out there. We're also going to put our New Jersey yearbook on the Patreon as well. So if you want to support us, we would love it. And Thomas would love it.
Thomas would really love it.
If anyone wants to make him, his birthday's coming up. So if you don't know what to get him, this is the thing to get.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Remember, housewives bring the drama.
We bring the receipts. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to help support us, please share it with others and leave a rating and review. Also, visit us on Instagram and Twitter, both at RH_on_RH for fun pictures and polls, or email us at rhonrhpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and remember to stay out of the shade.